Hi everyone, very good morning. My name is Ritesh Rajani. I am the founding member of Diversity Dialogues. Some of you may not know who we are. Let me give you a quick introduction of us. Diversity Dialogues is a collective of diversity and inclusion professionals working with multiple affinity groups and in the space of inclusion across gender, disability, LGBTQIA, and generational diversity, with both corporate organizations as well as community-based organizations. We strive to bring accessibility, inclusion, passion, compassion, and love in all the spaces that we work in. Our endeavor has been to make diversity and inclusion resources accessible and affordable for everyone to use and propagate more inclusion. And especially this happens in the spaces that are not so much spoken about. If you haven't seen our resources already, we have in 2016-17 we started by creating a resource guide for employers on LGBT inclusion. Then we created a video series on YouTube on the same. In 2018 we created a guide to support transgender and non-binary individuals who are transitioning at workplaces. We also created videos on parenting and mental health. All of these resources are live and freely available on our social media channels. So today we are here to launch one such resource. In the last few months, we all start calls, end calls with the line, stay home, stay safe, right? But when we say that, we have to realize that staying home and staying safe are not the same for everyone, right? Because home, unfortunately, is not the safe place for a lot of us. In the last few months, we have seen that the topic of domestic violence has actually come to the forefront because of being locked down at home, and for those people whose home is not a safe space. We've seen a spike in the amount of reported cases of domestic violence. One thing to note is that domestic violence, when we talk about domestic violence, it's not only restricted to women, right? Though the major victims are of course women, but it can, domestic violence encompasses all genders. It includes intimate partner violence. It includes violence against elders in the family. It includes violence against children in the family. So it is an all-encompassive word, and we are also trying to address that in an all-encompassive and inclusive way. Also, one more thing about domestic violence is that it's not only physical violence that we talk about, right? It includes sexual violence. It includes things like restriction on the access to movement, access to meet people, access to communicate with others. It includes restrictions on access to money. It includes financial control. It includes emotional control, emotional abuse, right? And a lot more as well. So we are not only talking about physical related violence here, but again, an all-encompassing. So today, as you might have seen and heard in the prelude now, that we are proud to announce the launch of a resource on domestic violence and the Indian workplace situation. Now you might wonder, what is the connection of domestic violence to a workplace? Why are we talking to it from a workplace perspective? While largely the location of the domestic violence may be outside of the workplace, right? And I say it could be home, it could be many other places, but the impact of that domestic violence definitely percolates and trickles into the workplace. And there are a lot of statistics to show that it does impact productivity, performance, and the general mental and physical well-being of people who are in the workplace. When I mean workplace, it's not just corporate organizations, right? It could be an educational institution, it could be a non-profit, it could be just a collective like us. So any places where we we do productive and work that is a significant part of lives. So domestic violence does trickle into these aspects of our work, and sometimes it even the physical space of domestic violence ends up being at the workplace. We've seen some examples, and you will read more about it in the guide. So, what is the guide trying to address? The guide talks a lot about, it starts with talking about what is domestic violence and giving a context of how the legal and other support systems that are there. But it largely focuses from an employer perspective of what can workplaces do, what can organizations do to support victims and bystanders of domestic violence. We also have to recognize that there are certain boundaries that the organization can do and should not do or should not overstep, right? We also talk about those boundaries in the guide. How does an organization deal with someone who is a perpetrator of violence and is part of your workplace, right? So we talk about all these aspects. We also talk about why is it important as a business case to even create a conducive workplace, to have support systems, to have policies for anybody who is going through domestic violence, right? So you can read all about it in the guide. The guide is going to be free and available for download. I'll come to the quickly as to how you can download in a bit. But one thing I do want to point out that workplaces have actually started addressing this. It's not completely an unspoken topic about, but of course there's a lot more to do. Not every workplace talks about this. In the recent months, we've seen that there are workplaces who have done sessions to build awareness about this topic. There are workplaces who have actually had in India where they have actually created a policy to support someone going through domestic violence. We've also seen a very nice example, which is very subtle and very impactful as well, is one of the retail organizations have on their bill, right, that goes to customers, they have printed in the last, after the last line of the GST and tax, they have printed a line which says that if you are someone going through domestic violence, or if you know someone domestic violence, here is a number to contact, right? And it is a very simple thing to do and yet very impactful, and it shows that the organization cares about not only its employees and associates, but also clients and customers. So that was a great way of spreading awareness. But like I said, there's still a lot that needs to be done in this space, like inclusion, like any other journey of inclusion. So we hope that the guide actually contributes to building more awareness about domestic violence and the Indian workplace. And we hope that it will be useful for you to see what you can do as an individual. And I hope that somewhere it contributes to creating a safe world for all of us at work and at homes as well. So what can you do once you read the guide, right? One is, of course, if you are someone who is personally going through domestic violence yourself, or if you know someone going, there is an appendix section which has resources as to which are the helplines you can reach out in India, which are the organizations that can support people in India. And if you're an organization, or if you're someone who's part of an institution and you would like to bring a change, it gives you a few tips on what you can do as a team, to what to say, what not to say, all of that to support an individual, right? How to even identify if someone is going through something like this. Also, I encourage you to send the guide to your leadership and HR or anybody who has the decision-making capabilities to create a formal systemic support system, right? And this is going to be something you can influence in, and you can send it and be a proponent of that change. And beyond the guide, we are also happy to help if you need any other recommendations on how to go further beyond just the conversation about this, and we are happy to formally support you as well. I'd like to shout out to all the collaborators on the Diversity Dialogues team for coming together to create this resource in the last, I think, about 6 months or so. Dr. Aruna Bala. Dr. Aruna is here on call. Hi, Dr. Aruna. Thank you for the contribution. It was a great team effort. Thank you, Kushal Bhatt. Madhumita Venkatraman, who is also the founding member of Diversity Dialogues. Mahesh Natarajan and Ryan Franz. So shout out to all the collaborators who have actually worked on the guide. We'd also like to acknowledge the role of organizations like Bembala, who work at the grassroots level on supporting domestic violence. And thank you to all such organizations who've helped us also build a greater understanding on the actual issues on the ground of this subject. So coming to the crux of this, how can you download this free guide? You can go to tiny.cc/dv guide. I'll repeat, tiny.cc/dv guide. IDE. So DV as in domestic violence. So tiny.cc/dv guide. You will see a quick registration form, and as soon as you fill that, you will get the guide in your inbox. Feel free to forward it to whoever can make the impact and bring that change. We will also be doing a post out shortly on all our social media channels, and you can find the link to that in our link on our Instagram bio as well. And of course, watch out for more from Diversity Dialogues on this topic of domestic violence in the next few weeks. We will be doing a few more shout outs and engagements and create more conversations on this topic. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And I do hope that this resource will be useful.